I intend on going to Washington, D.C. and telling them about the side that they're not going to show them today. The child abuse, the rampant rape, the fact that the BIA there's no law enforcement on the reservation whatsoever. It's a bad place. It's a scary place to live. And for some reason, our government has chose to overlook that. And Heidi Heitkamp wants to show Obama and Michelle this beautiful, beautiful, wonderful show, which is beautiful, mind you. I'm granted, these powwows are wonderful. But I think it would have been a much, much better way to spend money to take a plane load of kids from reservations from across the country, because what's happening at Spirit Lake is happening across the country. Take a plane load of kids and let them go testify in front of this hearing on this committee, or instead of just myself and a few others, and let them tell them what it's like growing up and living on these reservations.
Betty, I think what you're telling us is something that we've also heard from Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you recently had a letter to the editor published in, I'm seeing it in the Grand Forks Herald, maybe it was published elsewhere as well. You're saying, I quote, "North Dakotans are a gracious and forgiving people and politely will welcome the president to our state. But before he gives his speech concerning the wonderful, quote, nation-to-nation relationship he has with tribal leaders and announces what further monies and authorities he will bestow upon them, he needs to learn facts from those whom his edicts directly affect. According to two most recent U.S. censuses, 75% of tribal members do not live in Indian country, and many deliberately have taken their children and left in order to protect their families from the rampant crime and corruption. The abuses at the Spirit Lake Tribe Reservation here in North Dakota are well known, but it's also known that Spirit Lake is just a microcosm of what's happening on reservations across the country. These abuses are rampant on many reservations because the U.S. government has set up a system that lets extensive abuse occur unchecked without repercussion." Tell us more about that, Elizabeth.
Well, we can see it in a microcosm of Spirit Lake. We've seen the children abused. We've seen the federal government turn its back on it. We've watched a little 3-year-old. She was murdered while the BIA and the FBI were supposedly watching it. My husband's 16-year-old grandson was shot and left for dead at Spirit Lake last summer, and no one's been charged with that yet. And this is happening. We've been active for over 10 years and received letters from families all across the country. Many families have left the reservation system, but that's not sitting okay with tribal leaders, because, of course, if everybody leaves the reservation, they lose money and they lose power. So they do what they can with the Indian Child Welfare Act to take kids back to the reservation, or at least at the very least underneath their jurisdiction again. But many children are leaving the reservation in the company of their parents, and it's a policy, this propaganda they have out there that wicked social services and wicked adoption agencies and the like and horrible white people are stealing children from the reservation. It's not true at all. Tribal members are leaving the reservation on purpose.
Betty, one thing, President Obama, he's in the state from, according to his original schedule anyway, and I guess that's sort of in the wind now given some of the delays, but originally from Wheels Down and touchdown in Bismarck to Wheels Up, leaving Bismarck again, was going to be in the state for 3 hours and 40 minutes. Do you feel like President Obama, like his visit here is going to change anything or shed any light on these issues?
Absolutely not. I personally feel
hold on, Elizabeth. Let's
to pull attention away from the hearing that's coming up on the 24th. This is their way of saying, "Hey, look at what we plan on doing for you guys. We plan on this, and we'll give you this, and we'll give you that." And promises. All they get are promises, and instead, and in the end, the kids end up paying the price. The kids die. I get emails daily from people begging for help on the reservation, not just Spirit Lake, from reservations in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota saying, where do I go? Who can I go to for help? This is what's happening to me. And I have nowhere to go. I have no power. What am I supposed to do? So hopefully when we take this to D.C., Kevin Kramer and the rest of this committee will open up the doors and understand that the BIA is not doing their job and hold some people accountable.
Ladies, I have to take a break. If you could hold through the break, we'll get back to more of this right after the break. I'm Rob Port, sitting in for Jay Thomas, of course, talking about President Obama's visit to North Dakota today, which we will also be carrying live on WDAY as it happens, so stay tuned for that. We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Elizabeth Morris, she is the chairwoman of the Christian Alliance for Indian Child Welfare. Also, Betty Krenz, a former employee of the Spirit Lake tribe, worked in some of their foster care facilities, does not want to be called a social worker. I made that mistake. That was my mistake, not her mistake, earlier in the program. Talking with them, of course, President Obama visiting North Dakota. I'm watching the live stream right now on StandingBlog.com, and it looks like the helicopter may have touched down or something like that. The folks at the powwow are turned around watching something, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Anyway, back to our guests. I had just asked Betty Elizabeth if she felt like President Obama's visit to North Dakota was going to make any difference. A very short trip, originally scheduled just 3 hours and 40 minutes. What do you think this trip is really about, Elizabeth?
Oh, it's totally a photo op. A photo op for both President Obama and Senator Heitkamp. Her supposed bill and all the help she's supposedly doing for tribal governments is just that. It's help for tribal governments. It's not help for tribal people. The more power and control that you give tribal leaders, the more civil rights, civil freedoms you're stealing from U.S. citizens, both tribal members and non-members. And that's what this is all about. It's about giving up the support that they can get from Americans. Oh, wow, we're doing such a great job, and we care so much. And, oh, he's going to visit these little kids, these kids that the tribal leaders, by the way, chose for him to talk to. He's not going to be talking to anybody that disagrees with tribal governments. You can be sure of that. And that's all it is. It's just a little photo op. It's a power play. It's promotion of everything that tribal government wants, expense of the rights and of U.S. citizens.
Betty, do you agree? I mean, obviously the tribal governments are elected of the people there, and overwhelmingly the tribes historically vote Democrat. So Senator Heitkamp, President Barack Obama, these are people that they voted for. Is that really? I mean, Elizabeth is certainly painting a picture here of the tribes deceiving people and keeping some very ugly things a secret. Is that how you see things as well?
Well, I think that we've got to understand that a lot of these folks live in poverty. They hear promises, lots and lots of promises. We're going to get, we're going to give, you will have, we will make sure of, blah, 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 blah. All lip service, nothing ever happens. We'll give rides to you so you can go vote even. And this is how you vote. And ultimately, they're not educated on the real issues. They don't. 90% of the people on the reservation don't have internet.
So is it a problem with information? I mean, and that's certainly how I viewed it, is that there's not, a lot of times tribal media is non-existent, or if it does exist, it's owned by the tribe. Access to the internet.
Spirit Lake has no tribal newspaper.
Yeah.
There is no tribal news. And if it would be owned by the tribe, and it would be completely ran by the tribal government.
Sure. Elizabeth, briefly, and then I've got to go to a call.
When there is a tribal paper, it's usually owned and controlled by tribal government.
Yeah.
But that's not the bottom line. The bottom line is the lies. I have nieces that said during the last presidential election, they were told that Romney is against treaties. I mean, that's the kind of garbage that was put out there, and then they would go and pick up people and make them vote because they said, yeah, Romney's against treaties, and if you don't vote for Obama, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So there's lying, but there's also just plain corruption. My husband's tribal government was indicted for and convicted of ballot box stuffing and embezzlement. 100 absentee ballots from tribal members that lived all over the country were all signed by the same notary in Brainerd. So that kind of thing is going on all the time, buying votes and using people's absentee ballots. Most of the time, my husband never received his absentee ballot out in Montana.
I want to get to this call. We got Doug on one. We got just a couple minutes left. Doug, what's on your mind?
Ladies, I feel for you. I grew up on the Leech Lake up in Walker, and the reservations are oppressive to the youth. There's no question in my mind. But my question to you girls is, how do you feel the casinos, have they helped or have they hindered the population on the reservations?
Betty, what's your thought?
My personal opinion, I don't gamble myself. I love seafood night, don't get me wrong, but I think it's their own economic engine. They can take their paychecks, they can go cash them up at the casinos, and let's face it, people who have addiction issues, gambling is an addiction right along with alcohol and drugs. Casinos are their own economic engines.
Elizabeth, any thoughts real quick? We're almost to the end.
I agree with Betty with everything that she just said.
All right. Thanks for the call, Doug. Let's sneak in Richard here as well. You're on. What's on your mind, Rich?
Just out of curiosity, Bureau of Indian Affairs, is that run by the Native Americans, or is that a federal government institute?
Federal government.
That's the feds. Yeah, that's a branch of the federal government.
The feds. Okay. I mean, I guess where I'm going with it is it doesn't seem like your tribal leaders are any different than our leaders. You know, power corrupts, money, greed.
Exactly.
They're controlling
You're
everything.
Absolutely right.
And don't take this the wrong way. A friend of mine pointed out to me, he said, you go on any Indian reservation, you'll notice that the C-store, the off-sale, and the casino are the nicest places on the reservation. And he said there's probably a reason for that. And he said to even take a look at some of the tribal leaders' houses. So, don't take that the wrong way. I mean, it just goes to show you, they're not much different than the white man's leader. It's all about the greed and the power and.
It is, but the difference is law enforcement, and in off the reservation we have law enforcement, and on the reservation there is it's a lawless area, and my position is the children are paying the price. I have seen expressions on dead children's faces who've died horrifically. I have talked to 3-year-olds who have had long-term sexual abuse, and I have never been in a courtroom. Nobody's ever been charged for that particular incident.
That's horrible. Betty, I hate to cut you off, but we are coming to the end of the segment. Elizabeth, Betty, thank you both for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you
so much.
I'm Rob Port sitting in for Jay Thomas. More coming up straight ahead on the Jay Thomas Show, including continuing coverage of President Obama's visit to North Dakota. 701-293-9000, 888-970-9329. We'll be back. Don't go away.